We are live again for our daily half hour, looking at dictators and what they're up to, looking at the war in the Middle East, which is one fairly vile regime going to war against another. But it's a very confused picture because you have Russia supporting Iran, you have Trump letting Russia off the hook, and you have Iran targeting Americans, trying to kill them with the help of Russia. But actually, Trump can't bring himself prison. This is the kind of mess we're dealing with. Before we jump into all of that, I'd like to introduce my co-host, David Debata. Links to all his various publications and work are in the description. If you're not connected with his work, I strongly suggest that you do, because it is fantastic and it is incredibly timely for what we're talking about now. David, welcome.
Thank you. And I am again happy to be here with my good friend, Jonathan. And as he said, I've got my own YouTube channel as well as my own website. I'm going to flash that here now so you can see it. The YouTube channel is the No Delusion Zone. I don't allow delusions, which unfortunately does prohibit most MAGA members from making comments on my channel. But, I don't like delusions. I kind of, go with facts in reality. But in any event, No Delusion Zone on YouTube, and protectingtherepublic.com is my Substack. I highly encourage everyone to check both of those out. But like I said, I'm thrilled to be here with Jonathan. This is the Dictators. This is our daily live stream that we just started. It's a little bit more condensed than it has been before, but we're doing it 5 days a week. And so I'm hoping that folks like it and they spread the word. Tell your colleagues and friends and enemies and MAGA people, left, right, center about it, because we want a lot of viewer participation. We want your questions. We talked about that off air yesterday. If you don't agree with us, that's fine. It'd be really boring if everybody agrees with us and gives us a bunch of thumbs up and likes and all that stuff. We like that. Don't get me wrong. But we'd like to have some controversy. We'd like to have some differing opinions so, we can talk about that. Specifically, we're dealing with Iran, like everyone else. That's the most important story of the day, I think, for the entire world. So we're going to be delving into that a lot. Every moment of every day, there's news with that. So, Jonathan, kick it off. What's on your mind today about the mess in the Middle East?
Well, it seems that the war is widening significantly. That may always have been part of Israel's plan. It's using it as an excuse to whack various opponents in Beirut, around Beirut, and in Lebanon. It is continuing to absolutely hammer various targets in Iran. It is being reported in the last couple of minutes that the intelligence minister of Iran, I think that was the replacement for one that was knocked out last week, although the number of ministers who have been knocked out it's now difficult to keep in touch. We're on to the second or even third generation of appointees now, but the intelligence minister has been apparently taken out. This is clearly in an ongoing effort to try to ensure that there is no regime, that there is nobody to take over in Iran. This, however, is one of the problems, as I see it, with this operation. If they were going to sort of decapitate the regime, they would have had to do it not just in the first hours of the war, but that would need to have had an effect. It would need to have triggered a popular uprising. What we're actually seeing is that this strike on Iran has come perhaps too late. Many of the most active opponents of the regime, who absolutely, need our sympathy, people put extraordinary risk into protesting the regime, well, tens of thousands of them were massacred by the Iranian regime many, many weeks ago. That perhaps was the point to intervene. What are your thoughts here? I mean, it seems that either there's no strategy or that Israel is executing a strategy here, quite literally, that perhaps is no longer going to work, because the regime will just keep replacing and replacing. Cut one Hydra head off, another one will grow. And it underestimates the power of the Revolutionary Guard. This is an almost infinite source of new Hydra's heads. If you don't take that out, this is very, very difficult in a theocracy to take out something that widespread, that substantial. I would say that obsessed with this extreme version of Islamist doctrine, then really this strategy seems to be failing badly.
Well, if you're talking about the strategy that comes from Israel, I just have to say that this is not so much Israel's strategy, meaning all of their military, all of their intelligence services, and not their population. It's Netanyahu's strategy. He is, of course, leading this. And I believe that his strategy is to absolutely exterminate Iran from the top down. Whether or not that's a sensible or a ridiculous strategy, I believe that's what it is. Look, I think that his strategy is to pulverize Iran. Look at Gaza. Look what he did there. And this was not the same thing, of course, as what's going on now in Iran and also in Lebanon. I believe his strategy is absolute annihilation. He's going to annihilate every single leader that takes the place of the one that was just killed, and keep going and going and going. And he's working in tandem with another leaderless coalition, or another leaderless ally, which is the United States under Trump. Are you asking whether or not Trump in America had a coherent strategy? And my answer will be the same every time anybody asks, and that is no. There is no coherent strategy. There is no end game. There is no articulated goal here, because, as you know, the goal has been changing, not every day, about every hour. I've seen Trump actually voice 2 and 3 different end goals, strategies, reasons for invading and attacking Iran in one day. Just on Air Force One, when he was asked, I saw him change twice within the same press conference what the reason was for going into Iran. So no, he was led into this by Netanyahu. Netanyahu's end goal on this is absolutely devastating Iran, in his opinion, so that they can't lift a finger against him or anyone else. His other strategy is coming from the south of Iran, which is to eliminate the administration into Lebanon and occupy Lebanon permanently. They're already doing that. Netanyahu has ordered the southern half of Lebanon, the civilians, to evacuate, to just get out, move, because the Israeli forces are occupying Lebanon. They are absolutely devastating Beirut, very similar to what they're doing in Iran. So America has no strategy at all except to help Netanyahu. Netanyahu's strategy is to eliminate Iran and also the administration of Lebanon, so they can occupy that permanently, as well as the West Bank.
And there is a curious irony, isn't there, in that both Netanyahu and Trump potentially, in the short term, benefit from this war, in that it helps to keep them out of jail. These are both people who are trying to avoid the consequences of investigatory processes, judicial processes. These are both people who have rumors swirling around them of intense corruption of various sorts. There's a curious kind of irony here. But as we discussed yesterday, what they seek to do is to make their other allies complicit in their criminality. This is a very Putinist technique. This is a very Russian technique. This is a mafia technique, which is that you have coercive control over people if you can persuade them to take part in illegal acts. Then they can't turn around and prosecute you for other illegality because they are tainted. Do you see this sort of playing out? And what is the likely success that Trump will drag other NATO members into this to tar them with the same blood of criminality that he is now smeared in?
Well, I think it's an excellent theory. And look, and I said this yesterday, I don't know if it was on yesterday's podcast or show or not, but both Netanyahu and Trump are doing this, in my opinion. One of the main reasons they're doing this, they're attacking Iran, is to stay out of prison. As you just mentioned, both are up on corruption allegations. Trump is a convicted felon. Netanyahu would be most likely in prison himself because of massive corruption charges. So it's really no secret that both of them are looking for diversions to stay out of prison. Trump to stay as president, and yet Netanyahu, the same thing. So, the criminality in this is obvious. As far as tainting all or other countries, other nations under leaders to become complicit in this crime, and it is a war crime, it is a violation of international law. I don't care what anyone says that agrees with what's going on. Yes, I do believe that that's a big part, or at least a part of what Trump at least is trying to do. Netanyahu doesn't care. He's going to go forward with this no matter what. In fact, we can talk about what his real end game may be and how far he is willing to go in just a little while on this show. But to answer your other question, no, it's already failing, Jonathan. As far as Trump trying to pull in other countries, they're finally, most of them, I'm talking about his European allies. Well, he doesn't really have any allies anymore, but the European countries are basically telling him to go pound sand, that they're not going to support him. They have sent some warships, France being the most obvious. I believe half their fleet's involved now. And Italy has sent some anti-aircraft and missile defense systems. Some other countries have sent some other military assets, but that's mostly to protect their own people. It's not to support what's going on in Iran. And some of them did give some half-hearted support for Trump at the very beginning, but I'm not aware of anyone except actually Romania, now that I think about it, has specifically allowed America to use their bases to launch attacks against Iran. They may come to regret this in the very near future. Other than that, most of the other European countries and former allies are not falling for this, are not supporting the American illegal invasion of Iran. And it's really failing, and it's coming down very fast around Trump's ears. And there's many articles written in the last day or two about how America is now alone. We used to take pride in developing allegiances, allies, to do anything. We never wanted to go alone. We know that's not the way to go. When we did go alone, such as in some of our failed wars in the past, didn't work out too well. World War II, we were in a huge alliance, and I think most would agree that worked out very well. But now America is alone, and it's not a good thing, and it's looking grim every day.
Exactly right. And, I was talking to Constantine, who many will know from Silicon Curtain channel earlier. There's been a lot of speculation about Putin benefiting massively. And of course, in the short term, there's a spike in oil prices. It's helping to plug a hole in his budget. Constantine was pointing out this really is perhaps illusory to an extent. It allows Putin to purchase a few more weapons, rustle up a few more bodies for the front. It will cause death and injury on the Ukrainian side, absolutely. But it's not going to fix the systemic problems in his war. And I think this is an interesting one, because even with temporary suspensions of Russian sanctions, which the Trump regime has done, that is at best a sticking plaster solution. And if, and this is a big if Europe is going to continue to clamp down on the Shadow Fleet, and indeed some Shadow Fleet vessels have been impounded by the US as well, if we are going to continue doing that and indeed tighten it further, then Putin may find that actually these higher oil prices don't do him very much good at all. And we'll come on to some of the detail later, but it seems that Putin may, well, let's ask ourselves the question, what is the ideal scenario for Putin vis-a-vis the Middle Eastern war? And then we need to work backwards to see whether Trump is delivering on that or delivering on his own agenda for his own constituency. And it's been speculated, not just by me, but by several experts who are in the dissident Russian analyst community, what Putin needs is a rumbling discontent and chaos in the Middle East. Not a huge end of times conflagration. So that will upset some of the evangelical Christians there, the extreme ones who are looking for the rapture and that kind of cataclysm. No, what Russia needs is for the Iran regime to remain in place, broadly speaking, or the character of that regime as an extreme theocracy to stay in place. It needs that war to drag on for weeks, possibly months, which will keep the oil price high. It'll keep the Straits of Hormuz choked, which will put additional pressure on various countries to turn a blind eye to or even relieve sanctions on Russia. This is the ideal scenario for Putin, a long, drawn-out, protracted war, which incidentally, if it proves painful for the US and the US public and military, that's an added bonus. That is his ideal scenario. Let's work back and actually see whether Trump is delivering on that. Well, it looks like he's got himself into something that's fairly intractable without a clear outcome, either by intention or accidentally. The regime, if this was all about replacing the theocratic regime with a ground-up democracy or with those protesters who were protesting the regime, then the US would have moved much sooner. So maybe this is much closer to the Russian strategy. People remember in the Second World War that the Soviet Union had the opportunity to liberate Warsaw. It held off doing that until the Germans had thoroughly slaughtered and destroyed that city. Why did they do that? Well, it meant that when they came in and they wanted to suppress Polish nationalism, essentially turn it into a puppet state, well, it was much easier if you let the Germans finish it off in advance. Is this wild speculation? But is this partly what we've seen here, which is a war that is designed for the media at least to topple the Iranian regime, but in reality, like Maduro in Venezuela, is designed just to topple symbolically the regime, but actually keep it broadly intact, to generate headlines, and actually they don't give a damn about the populace who would like to replace this theocratic regime in its entirety, and then possibly align it with the Western world, not with Russia and the axis of authoritarians. Is this wild speculation, or can you sort of see something in there? And I'm not saying Trump does all this consciously, but maybe manipulated into a scenario that delivers this result.
I'm not sure, Jonathan. The reason I say that is not only is Trump a non-thinker, but his very highest advisors. We're talking the J.D. Vances and the Kash Patels and the Christie. Well, Christie Noma's gone, thank God. But the Tulsi Gabbards and all these other non-thinkers, the Pistol Pete Hegseth, for example, they don't have any strategic thinking. I really do believe that their philosophy is bomb, 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 bomb Iran, which, by the way, comes from the Beach Boys, if those of you remember anything like that. Really is to inflict.
It's good he's passed on, not to hear your rendition of that there. I mean, no offense, but
I agree. But no, I mean, he's made it very, very clear that his whole thing is about inflicting pain. He likes this. And I'm not going to actually, I didn't save any clips of him saying that, but he wants to inflict as much pain as possible. As far as him wanting, when I say him, the Trump regime, wanting to play this out for a long period of time to enact some of the strategies that you're talking about. On the American side, I don't think so. However, I do agree on the Russian side, makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Their whole thing, what they've done forever, as you know, is to create chaos. That's right out of their playbook, going back forever with Russia. And they're doing that now in the Middle East with our former allies in the Arab world, in the Gulf states, by them bickering among themselves now because they're being attacked. They're being drawn into this, even though they don't want to. Russia's immediately now getting some advantage out of this by the increased oil prices, of course. But another huge advantage is that most of the Western media now is ignoring Ukraine. Disgusting, horrible. That's great for Putin. He thinks this is wonderful. And he would be right. It's a tragedy, but that's one of the byproducts of this. So the longer that the war in Iran lasts, the better it is for him. Not only that, it's wearing down the American military. Many of the assets that they would be able to deploy to NATO, if Trump allowed us to do so, in the event of a Russian invasion or even a drone attack or any kind of a Russian incursion into NATO, are going to be depleted. Many of them depleted in this Middle Eastern war. So he, like China, is sitting back watching all of this. Plus, they get to see American tactics, just like China. They're studying this. They're not stupid. So they're learning a lot. They're getting richer. They're increasing or padding their war coffers from the increased oil revenue. And the shadow fleet, like you said, Trump has lifted many of the sanctions on the shadow fleet. And the war in Ukraine is pretty much being ignored by the Western media. So right now, it's a win-win for Putin. Yes, he's still got a lot of domestic problems, but he's not that weak, not as much as a lot of the YouTube scenarios are painting that he's on his way out, that they're actually carrying his casket out of the Kremlin as we speak. Ain't happening, and it may not happen for a long time. He's actually going to probably come out of this looking better than he has in a while, at least in the short term. And Jonathan, the longer it lasts, I say the stronger he gets, not weaker.
Yeah. And I'm going to tackle, so Carl is by parts abusive, by parts saying some interesting stuff, by parts saying things that are that could be questioned, let's say, and debated. He's just said, don't we know where Shaheeds come from? This can only do harm to Russia. Well, that would have been true in the early part of the war, because Russia was entirely dependent on Shaheeds as technology, as a manufacturing source, and for its components. Unfortunately, he's not exactly correct there, in that Russia, as far as we're aware now, has almost no dependence on Iran in terms of the manufacturing for components. They have dramatically scaled up their ability to manufacture these. They're using not just parts for Iran anymore, they're using parts that come from all over the world. That's our bad that we still let this stuff through by various grey channels. But Russia has gone beyond this now, to the point where it is iterating some of the technology behind Shaheeds. It is incorporating various things in there to make them more autonomous, rather than just a point and shoot. Until Starlink were cut off, they'd started to integrate Starlinks in to create some kind of ability to let's say, alter flight patterns, alter target trajectories in flight, even go after moving targets, trains, that kind of stuff, which is one of the reasons why Starlink was blocked. Unfortunately, Russia is probably not going to really be is not going to have an issue if Ukrainian manufacturing of either missiles or Shaheeds is taken out of the loop. Not at this stage in the war. I mean, but that would have been a valid point to make even last year, but unfortunately not now. There are also reports coming out that China is manufacturing bodies and components of some of the drone types, whether those are the Shaheeds, the offensive ones, or the so-called decoy drones that don't really pack explosives or are just there to deplete air defense, even though they have the same kind of profile as offensive drones. So you won't be entirely sure whether it's a decoy or a fully armed one. This is part of the strategy that Russia has evolved in the latter part of this war. So I don't know what the impact is going to be. Of course, if the theocratic regime survives, then it still is going to have some strong link to Russia, even if Russia does not have the capacity to fully support that regime with military supplies and so on. But we are facing the axis of evil here, the axis of evil intent. And that leads to the other thing, which is the other predictable outcome of poking the hornet's nest, which is Iran. I'm not arguing that it wasn't a hornet's nest. A vile regime doing vile things, sponsoring terrorism, causing instability in the area. And as I would say, a rabid atheist, I'm not a big fan of theocratic regimes, whether they're mild or extreme. I think religion should be kept out of politics entirely. That's just my point of view here. But one of the predictable outcomes of all of this would have been that Iran's network of terrorist sleeper cells could be activated, or they could inject terroristic elements into our societies. And it seems that the head of security in the Trump regime has just resigned. He's made some quite curious statements condemning the Trump administration and its war in Iran. But this guy who's resigned was a core MAGA. I mean, he was an absolute dyed-in-the-wool, pretty extreme MAGA character.
Right.
You know, whether he's competent or not, you know, you just have to watch his arguments with Trump. But he's resigned at this point, citing what seems to be an elevated threat to the US and its citizens, which is a direct result of Trump's decision to go to war.
Right. And he also said that there was no immediate threat or imminent threat to the United States by Iran prior to this invasion. And I just want to say, to divert a little bit, if it was up to me, I'm talking to you, that guy, Kyle, I would block your ass, because as we said at the opening, we want discussion, but we don't want insults. The reason I don't debate MAGA much anymore is because of people like you. I don't know who you are, if you're real, a bot, a troll, you're paid off, or you're just an idiot. But we don't take insults here. I said, and Jonathan said, we want people who disagree with us, but we don't want insults. We don't want adolescent taunts, and we need you to back up your disagreement with facts, not with insults. So again, and I'm going to ask Jonathan flat out, ban his ass, get rid of him. That guy, Kyle, you're out of here. If you're a MAGA wannabe, or you're just a moron, please do not do insults, because you're not long for this this episode. You're not long for this live stream. We want to debate people, but please pull your heads out of your ass. Behave more like adults than 5-year-olds, and we'll debate you as long as this live stream lasts. And that's all I wanted to say about that, because people like him kind of piss me off, if you haven't already guessed. So that guy, Kyle, hi, bye.
Yep, absolutely, and we should empower our dear friend moderator BME to do stuff about
BME. Get rid of that guy,
yes.
Kyle. Really, he's a pain in the ass. He's obviously a troll or a troll wannabe. Yeah. Just get rid of him. We don't need people like that. We want
at the moment. We need to empower BME to do that. So let's no one hit on BME. He's not got the we'll figure it out. We'll get him the
figure it out. Right. Do what you want to do now, because Kyle, you're not long for this live stream.
Police the sandpit. Yeah, exactly. That's what we need to do there. But
anyway, look, and what I do
want the chances then of imminent threats? Let's say
what I do. Yeah, threats are no good. Insults, childish remarks. What I do.
No, threats. Security threats in the US. Let's turn back to the actual issues. So the security
I just want to interject one thing that Kyle said. It's the only thing that made it doesn't make any sense. I just want to address it for other people. He said, prove that the war in Iran that was launched by the United States is an illegal war. Well, again, if you could read at any more than a first grade level, when one country invades another country, one more powerful country invades another country that is not as powerful for claims that are not substantiated or are not approved either through their own government or the United Nations, that's called a violation of international law. If you don't like that, I really don't give a shit. That's international law. That's what Russia is guilty of in Ukraine, and it was guilty. That's what Russia, the Soviet Union, was guilty of in World War II, Germany, and on throughout the world's history. If you don't accept that, too bad. So I just had to say that this is an illegal war. Anyone that knows anything about international law knows that this was an illegal war. There's the right way to pursue things and the wrong way. Jonathan and I have both said the Ayatollahs, the current regime in Iran, sucks. They're bad. They're bad people. We would hope that they didn't exist. But the way that the United States under Trump is pursuing this war is wrong. It's actually making things worse. So let me leave you to follow up on my comments, Jonathan, because I think that's an important point.
I think this is the key point. I mean, you're not going to get people on the illegality side of it. Let's say we wouldn't get someone like John Bolton to agree with the illegality of it. Well, that's unfortunate. But, you know, what we can, I think, debate people on who are, you know, disinclined to, you know, their classic comment would be, well, there's no such as thing as international law. It's an invention. It's a figment of imagination. Okay, fine. If that's the world you want to live in, I can tell you that is going to be a very violent, cruel, and unpleasant place, even worse than the past century that we've just come through. but let's park that, because that's, you're talking about sort of cult beliefs there when people put those kind of arguments forward. What you can say, I think, is that this war is not being executed in a strategically intelligent fashion. And one of those failures of strategy is to not prepare your bases for the attacks that we've seen, and not to prepare your home front for the blowback. And the blowback, which is now feared, is large-scale terrorist incidents against the United States. Not that we want to see that. We absolutely don't want to see that. Even to prove Trump wrong, I don't want to see that happening, because it's ghastly. I don't want to see a single Democrat, or dare I say MAGA person, injured or hurt as a result of Trump's bad decisions. That's not what we want, but it's looking possible that this might happen.
Well, one of the worst possible moves any nation can do when they pursue a war, whether they're right or wrong, in violation of international law or not, is not to get the backing of their population, to not try to explain why they are launching their country into a war, to not even talk to them. Forget about the government. He's bypassing the Congress all the time, but to not explain, at least on a basic level, why he is doing this, and to try to gain the support of the American people, is a tragic mistake. In fact, he's alienated most of the American public. Depending on what poll you look at, anywhere between 60 to 70 odd percent of the American public, including Republican voters, do not support this war in Iran by the American government, by the Trump administration. That's not a very good thing. Again, I don't know why he's doing this, because he usually is very good at rousing his base in trying to get the American public, at least the MAGA segments of the American public, behind him. He didn't do that. And he regularly says every day he doesn't care what anyone thinks. We don't need any help. He can do as he wants. What is the one quote I did want to throw out here, Jonathan, because I forgot it yesterday? He says that he's going to do as he wants in Iran, specifically about invading and bombing Kharg Island, because it's fun. That was a quote, because it's fun. Why would any American want a president like that? It's not fun to kill people. It's not fun to launch a war against another nation, period. So, this is a 5-year-old leading the United States. And the fact that there are millions, tens of millions of Americans who support him after he says and does things like that is still mystifying to me. And I'm sure old Kyle there would support him all the way anyway. Actually, I'm not reading his comments anymore. I don't really care what he says, but it's fun. And what did the other thing that Pistol Pete said that really got my attention the other day is that American troops will give no quarter to the Iranians. That's right out of the Middle Ages. That means when an enemy surrenders, you slaughter them. You do not accept their surrender. You kill every one of them, whether or not they're handcuffed, their hands behind their back, they're wounded, they're laying on the ground. You kill them. That's the order that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, not War, Secretary of Defense, gave to the American military. This is disgraceful and disgusting. And any American that supports that is not an American, is a traitor.
Yes, I mean, it's an entire betrayal of the order that was set up during the Second World War to prevent just these crimes happening again. And to say that they're going to do away with, all of this woke stuff like the Geneva Conventions, like the rules of war that have been developed over centuries. I mean, it's not just as obscene and evil, it's childish as well. It's
well,
a denial.
The blowback, Jonathan, because that was the lead into this question. I absolutely did not mean to gloss over it. We in the United States, anyway, are seeing the blowback starting. I mean, from the rising prices, and the prices here, not just for gasoline, are very high. People in America, middle-class people in the United States, for the last several weeks, have been having to decide, many of them, about paying the rent, or buying food, or paying their mortgage, or their car loan, or their electric bill, and on and on and on. And it's going up. Gas has gone up. I don't know if it's 60 or 70% or at least 50% or so in the last, well, since the war started. In many places, it was about $3 a gallon before the war started. It's now about $3.70 or $3.75 as an average. There are places where it's over $4 a gallon, and the CEOs of some of the gas companies has predicted very soon that could go over to $6 a gallon. That would be a catastrophe. I don't know, for the folks in the UK that don't know that much about the conversion to the dollar, that's a catastrophe. That would mean that many, many truckers would just pull their rigs off the road and stay there, just throw away the keys, that many people could not go to work. It would be an economic catastrophe in the United States. That's just part of what we're looking at because of the war in Iran.
The irony is, of course, that during Biden's administration, when it was easy for the MAGAs to criticize, when they didn't actually have to take responsibility for anything, you had this phenomenon of these stickers stuck on petrol pumps or gas pumps saying, he did this. You're now starting to see Trump stickers replacing that, pointing to, well, gas prices that are worse than they were during the Biden era, and actually they are going up. There's no sign they're coming down. No changes are being made geopolitically that would force them down. This is a catastrophe. And to close this episode out, we are seeing a lot of people who still identify, I think, as MAGA, core MAGA. Some of them are, I would say, have extreme racist views. Some have extreme conservative religious views. Some have just generally, some are anti-Semitic. Some have extreme nativist views, etc. But many in this podcast community who would still identify as MAGA, Nick Fuentes being one, Marjorie Taylor Greene, etc., they're coming out and they're lambasting Trump in a way which I have to say is quite entertaining. It also gives rise to the "I told you so" on steroids, because we've been saying this for some time, and being derided by them for what they are now pointing out or realizing. I mean, this is bad for him. Surely he can't imagine he could survive his core base turning against him in such a vitriolic fashion. And when we talked about this before we hit record as well, when the Democrats go after somebody, unfortunately, because I'd love to see them being more effective, but it's like being savaged by a dead sheep. I think that is the phrase someone has used in the past, not my phrase. But when people like the Lincoln Project, Nick Fuentes, Taylor Greene go after it, I mean, these people are vicious. They have quite a way with words and images, and now they're deploying these rhetorical skills against Trump.
But don't take that, and I agree with you, but don't take that as the vast majority of the day, the average MAGA, the non-politicals, the non-pundit MAGA are feeling this way. They still strongly support Trump. In fact, I know what's driving that is, as much as they may disagree with what Trump is doing now, that's driving up the gas prices, they hate Democrats more. They hate what they believe are libs more, socialists, communists, and all the other insane tags that they put on anyone who disagrees with Donald Trump. They hate those people more, to the point, and this has been going on for a long time, Jonathan, in the United States with Republicans. They shoot themselves in the foot. They support someone who absolutely acts against their interests because he hates who they hate. And they don't have the critical thinking skills or just common sense to realize, wait a minute, he may not like Democrats, or he may, disagree with some of their philosophies or ethics, but I need somebody who's going to allow me to keep my job, to put food on the table, to pay my bills. And that ain't him or her at this time. They're just not capable of doing that. I'm talking the hardcore MAGAs that still make up the majority of Trump's support. So I don't see that going away anytime soon. Yes, as you said, the pundits, the Nick Fuentes, and the people we all read about are turning against him. Not really. They're doing it because they sense the way the wind's blowing, and they're going to make the most out of it in the short term. because of Iran, because of gas prices and food prices. But as soon as things change a little bit, and they will, they're going to go jump right on back on Trump's bandwagon. If the Epstein files don't take him down, that's for another segment. But I don't put any faith or stock in what the Fuentes and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and all those people are doing right now in terms of, in quotes, turning against Trump. MAGA still rules supreme in the Republican Party.
Fantastic. Well, we're almost reaching the end, and somehow the Kyle guy has come out of timeout and rejoined. I don't know how that works. I need to investigate, but he's here just to witness the end, as it were, because we're about to wrap it up. We'll do another one tomorrow because there is endless stuff to talk about.
We're here every day, folks, 5 days a week at least, mainly at, I believe it's 2 p.m. UK time now, correct? Most days.
Correct. Yeah, most days.
Yeah.
A little bit late today because I was, as a recording with Constantine, which is going up tonight.
Right.
And people should watch out for that.
As Jonathan coughs his way through the ending, I'm just going to say, please, folks, join us. Join us tomorrow at this time. And as I said at the beginning, please watch, my channel. Please join me on the No Delusion Zone on YouTube and protectingtherepublic.com on my Substack. And please subscribe if you like what you see. We'll be back here again at 2 p.m. UK time, 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern time. And please come back, tell folks about it. And it's a new channel. It's a new series. And except for people like Mr. Kyle there, we'd like folks to engage in honest debate. So I'm done.
Yep, we're over for today. See you back again tomorrow.